Well, good evening, Facebook. Aspen and she was my first guest on the podcast of the Loneliness Chronicles. And so we wanted to do a live and just kind of go over a little bit about our relationship, the struggles that we've had, and the struggles that we might have in the future, but how we've found tools to help us along the way. And we thought it would be really encouraging for other mom and daughter duos to be able to have a conversation and maybe chime in for things that they might have questions on, or maybe what has helped Aspen and I. So this is my daughter Aspen. She's my middle daughter.
Yeah. I'm 15. I'm a sophomore in high school. What else?
What kind of things do you like to do?
Anything active, pretty much. I try to keep myself busy with sports and a job working for my beautiful mama. So blessed that I got that. Yeah. Very active.
And you help your dad too. Your dad
Right.
does business as well. So Aspen's really actually very impressive with the help that she gives her family. We wanted to kind of get on here and be really courageous and talk about some of the difficulties that we've had over the years and how we've grown closer together. We had a pretty strained relationship for a while.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of talk about that, Aspen?
Yeah, for a while there, I think, what time was it? Like 2021?
Maybe
2020?
Yeah, 2020 is when the divorce
2020.
happened, probably around that time.
Yeah, so 2020, I think 2021 was like the biggest year for me just because I was going into middle school. I had a lot of stress that I didn't know how to deal with either. Kind of figuring out all that. And then, of course, the divorce was hard on everybody.
Right, yeah.
Right, so that added a ton of stress and just, navigating going through middle school and all that, I think was also a huge thing for me, and like figuring out sports and my new school schedule because it was quite a bit of a change. And then Timber going into school.
Yeah.
And finding her way around, and she was super stressed with that. I think that...
And Timber's her younger sister,
Yes.
so I have 3 daughters, so...
Timber's the youngest sister.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
all the girls are around 6.5 years apart. And so with Aspen, though, I wanted to really have that conversation around kind of where I was at that time, too, right? And the strains that we had on that relationship.
Right.
And so I think being really open and honest that it was difficult. I was coming from a place where I couldn't hear you, right? And then it was like clashing because I think you needed things from me, and I thought I was being a good mom, and so I wasn't able to be there for the way that you needed.
Right. And I didn't know how to articulate what I needed. I just knew, how to kind of butt heads.
Right. So you weren't really sure.
Always, that was always how we communicated.
Yeah, it was just kind of butting heads, and I wanted to prove that I was a good mom. So if something wasn't working, I'm like, yes, but I'm doing this. I'm helping you in this way. And so what I've learned through that is I started asking Aspen questions. And that was probably the biggest tool. How did that help you? Like when I would come to you and say, Aspen, how do you feel loved by me?
I think a lot of it really made me think, like, because those have never just been something I was thinking about. I was always thinking about, well, we had this fight, like, this was just so horrible. Like, I was really only focusing on, I think, a lot of the negatives about our relationship, and I was thinking a lot about myself and what I needed and how I wasn't getting it. And so then those questions came, and they were like, well, how do you feel loved? What do you need me to do in this moment? Is there something that stands above the rest? I think it really made me think about my own emotions and not just our relationship and what I more so maybe wanted out of the relationship and what I actually needed and what I knew you could do. So I think that they just really made me think about other aspects that I maybe wasn't focusing on before.
Right. And so I think that's with some of the other programs that I do and working with people, I learned some really amazing tools. And those were insightful questions. And so I think that that was one of the things that really helped me when we were navigating our hardship is I had to then remember that it's not personal, right? As a mother, I wanted to help you. I saw you struggling. And then, but I wasn't willing to hear you when you were then being like blamey or shaming me for the way that I was being a mom. And so when I was able to kind of come back home to myself and ask you questions like, hey, Aspen, how do you feel loved? Or what do you need from me in this moment right now? And I think that that was such a huge thing for us.
Right.
Yeah. How did that play out? Can you give a scenario? Or, I mean, I remember one scenario around pictures. And if you want to go to that, I mean, it was really hard, right?
It was. That one was, I think that one we were in a really good spot. And then that was sort of a touchy subject. For me, it didn't matter, you know?
Right.
For me, it was just kind of...
So to give a little background, with divorce, it's kind of hard, right? And we had some hardships with that, right?
Yes.
So it was like one parent was saying one thing, and then another parent was wanting something. And we had a lot of difficulty, and I know it sounds really silly, but it was around photographs. Like, that was really important to me. And so sometimes I wasn't able to get, if you were at your other parent's house, then I didn't have the sheet, and so I couldn't order photos. And I know it sounds so silly, but I saw you giving photos to the other parent, and it was like secretive, right? Because you were trying to protect the other parent too.
Right. Because they only give out one sheet.
Right. Yeah, and we've learned now.
They only give out one a sheet. You have to make sure you get two.
Right. But I think, and I was hurt in that moment, and I wasn't really able to speak it until we kind of got home. And then I said, this is where my heart is, and this is what's happened. And I think that that was the biggest part of it, is that I needed to also not come from that place of like attacking. Right. And being able to give you voice. So in that, what helped you through that moment? Is there something that I did or said or acted that you were able to then be able to have a conversation with me?
I think when we were together right in that moment, I think when you left was the biggest thing for me because, you know, I had so much going on. I was at the cheer game and we were struggling, as that program has always. So I was trying to help, you know, my friends in that, and then there was the pictures that got handed out, and then there was hurt at you, like your side. And so I think that, you know, not letting it get heated in that moment and just walking away and giving us both time to think about what we actually wanted to say really helped in like just taking a step back. Because I know for me at least, like when we first had it, I didn't even think about how you would have felt about that. And so then when we were kind of butting heads and articulating, maybe not the best way, but speaking, and you would come and I could see that you're coming from a place of hurt and like this was important to me, then I could take a step back and look at it from your angle and kind of think about that for myself.
Right, and I think that comes from vulnerability. And I think that when we actually are able to, as parents and siblings and daughters, I mean, we've come a long way because we've been able to be vulnerable with each other, knowing that we can trust each other, I think. What is that?
Yeah, kind of trust each other, because especially at the beginning, or at least for me, it felt very like if I came to you with something, then I had to go to Dad about it, or like parent, you would go to Dad about something. So I feel like definitely the trust has changed a lot, and like I can it's not as strained either, because I think when we used to fight, you would look for, or I would look for too, I would look for validation in the fight, and like, she was in the wrong, right?
Right. And so,
Like-
yeah, we were trying to find that on
Right, through
other
other
sides
people.
of it. Right.
Right, bringing in other people. And I think that now that we don't butt heads as much, we can talk.
Well, yeah, and we
Without the
stopped
fear.
bringing in other people,
Right.
right? We actually went to each other and said, "Hey, is there something that I can do, or how do you need me to show up today?" Right? And so, and I think that's really important when we have these relationships. Is I really strongly wanted to be a part of your life, and at that time, after the divorce and some of that, it was strained, and
Right.
and I wasn't thinking from your point of view either. And so you gave me such a gift when you started being vulnerable and telling me how you were really feeling.
Yeah. And I think that we also had a lot of, our relationship came together from other things too, like when we would talk, when you or me or whoever reached out and we would talk about Wednesday night church and like what they would talk about, like that was something that we knew that we weren't going to fight about, but we would fight about other things all the time. And I think that like other things like that, or like day at school or whatever, like things that we knew we wouldn't fight about, and then we would actually be able to talk about, and we knew, this isn't going to be a fight, no one else is going to be brought into this. That is what I think helped too, is just being able to talk about other things.
Right. And our faith has been so huge. Like
Yes.
sharing that with Aspen, her faith is so strong. And I think that brought us closer together. I mean, would you agree? Or
Yes, I think that, because I think that before, when we were really strained, I know that I kind of lost sight of my faith, just because everything going on, it's really hard to have faith when the waters are not calm and there's so many things going on. And you just kind of sit there and be like, well, if there really is a God, like, why is this all happening? Why is this? Because for me, I mean, the divorce at that time was the end of the world.
Yeah. And
my whole life as I had known it is just now completely different. There's now 2 houses instead of 1, and I can't go to both parents at once because they're in different places. It was a change that I had really thought, like, wow, this is so horrible. So I think that when we were really butting heads, I definitely lost sight of my faith. And then when you had encouraged me, well, you still have to go to church, like, just whatever, and we had shared that faith or whatever, I think that really brought us closer together, because it was something we could relate on such a personal and deep level.
Right. And I remember too when you would literally looked at me and said, can we talk about this? Can we talk about what I learned? And so when I would show up for you, because at the end of the day, and some of us parents know this, I mean, we've been working all day, and especially as single parents now, right? I don't have that other person helping me. And so it was really hard for me to show up and instead of getting on my phone. And so we dedicated that time together. And really, after Wednesday night church, we'd talk about like what she learned, and maybe there was some faith-based stuff that I had to also input, and we'd have a conversation around it. And it was so beautiful. And I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
Yeah, it was really amazing. And I still love talking about our faith.
Together, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, and now after Sunday church is when we're there together. I think that, because Wednesday night church, I felt a lot of my input, which is something that, I long for other people to like have input, but she was never there. So now that we have Sunday churches together, and we can see other point of views, that I think also helps a lot.
Yeah, and I think seeing you as not just like my daughter, right? And like, listen to me, I have to be this mom, actually this beautiful human in front of me that I could learn from. And I think that also brought so much. Like when you started sharing and just the way your mind works was different than mine. And she was able to see the world from a different and maybe even clearer vision, and didn't have maybe some of the filters that I had. It was just so beautiful to see what you had experienced.
Yeah, I think point of view is definitely, because I know it may whatever seem weird, but when we talk about these different things and you say, well, this thing really stood out to me because of this, those things didn't stand out to me. I see your point of view and why things are important to you in a sense. Like, and then I can put it to our everyday lives, like, this is kind of like this from church. Like, this is important to her because of, like, we had already talked about this. Like, okay, I know why this is important, and I can respect that, and I can see why, and I already have that knowledge. I think that, the faith aspect just... And we can apply that to our everyday lives.
Right. And there's times we still struggle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we still have those struggles. And I think, just on the day-to-day teenage daughter-mom relationship and like, Aspen, did you do the dishes? Like, come on, right?
Yeah.
And so, and we come to what I've realized too is that I have to let go. I have to not need control as much and then tell you from a place of vulnerability, like, this is why I need this, and this makes me feel good when we have a clean home or when things are done. And then it seems like, I don't know, does that help you?
It does, because, personally, like, some of the things you asked me to do, I'm like, well, that literally has no significance. Like, that is such a small thing, like, that doesn't matter. And then we take a step back, and you come back, and you're like, well, this is why it's so important. And I can then respect that and see that, and I'll sure do the silly thing because it doesn't matter anyways. And that goes kind of for me too, like, leave the bathroom door open so my stuff doesn't get melted or whatever. Like, silly little things that are important to me that someone else may not see as important. I think that, and learning that from you, because that's not something I grew up with, just learning that and, like, you bringing these tools to me also, like, really helps, I think, in our everyday life, or at least I think it does when I explain to you, like,
from where your mind is.
This is why it's so important to me.
Right, and I think that when we have communication, I think asking the right questions, and sometimes when we're in relationship with people, we just assume. And I caught myself doing that quite frequently, and I had to really check myself. And one of the biggest tools that I learned was coming from a place of curiosity. And when I really stepped into that curiosity, it like really opened up a world for me. Because before, like, I would ask a question, but I thought I knew the answer. And that is a bullshit question. Like, I say that now, right? And so I try to ask you questions from a place of curiosity. Like, what is really going on here? And sometimes I can feel it as your mother, and I want to, because you are in a relationship with a boyfriend. Yeah. And so Caleb's been in your life for how long now have you guys been dating?
A little longer than a year.
Okay. So a little
almost
younger.
in a few months, a year and a half.
So sometimes if that's weighing heavy on her heart, or maybe sports or some of these other things, it's been interesting to kind of, be able to navigate that. And if I think I know the answer, it's like, okay, James, that's a bullshit question. Don't ask her, right? So, like, asking you from a place of curiosity, like, what's really happening right now for you? Or how can I show up for you that you would feel most loved? And I think that question is probably one that I use a lot, right?
Yeah. I think two important things that just from that I've learned, like, how you phrase things, because, like, what's wrong and what's really happening, they're, you may think they're the same question, but they have such a different output than, because what's wrong, I kind of, push away, and, or at least for me, I'm just like, well, nothing, but what's really happening more so states it as, like, what's happening in your life, like, just tell me about what's happening in your life, not what's wrong with you or whatever. And then another thing, like the bullshit questions or whatever, like, you had kind of told me this when I was having issues, and you just said, don't fill up the plate. Like, if you know whatever the answer is, and if you're just saying all this stuff, and you're just filling up the plate and filling up the plate, once you give it to that other person to answer and to respond, the plate's full. They can't respond. They have no room to really respond. You've already filled the plate. Like, at that point, it's a one-sided conversation. Like, don't fill the plate, Like, don't ask those silly questions that you already know the answer to, because they have no chance to respond then. And if they do respond in how you're not thinking, you may think that they're lying or not telling you how it really is or whatever. So I think that that's two very important things that I've learned. And I think that help our relationship too.
Right. Yeah, and I think as we open up, right, and as we have these deeper discussions, because I really want to get to know you, right, as you learn and change and, all the things, but I wasn't, for so many years, I was so just being a mom and just showing up. And like, and I just wasn't feeling fulfilled in that, and I don't know if you were either, like with our relationship.
Because you're not just a mom, you're also a person.
Right.
And I think that coming more so from like, well, I have to be a good mom, I have to do this, it doesn't leave room for error, and it doesn't leave room for growth, because you confine yourself to this one person, and then, things that I may need you to show up as, not what you think as what would be a good mom, but what I need.
Right, because
different.
Yeah, because when we started communicating, like, what does it look like for me when,
right.
What was the question? Like, I would ask you, like, what makes you feel loved, or how do I show up and you feel loved in the most part? Like, I think that those questions had more validity to them, because then you could actually say, like, what really it was that you felt a good mom was. Because what I felt like what was a good mom wasn't what you felt like a good mom was, right? So I thought I had to do X, Y, and Z, and you were like, no, I need this.
Right. Yeah. I remember one time, I think it was like some type of sports game or whatever, you couldn't make it because you were working, and then whatever, I was mad, and I held that against you, because that's not you not showing up in that moment. Just, that's what I was like, oh, well, I needed you to show up at this moment. And so then when we finally got to talk about it after whatever, we had butted heads about it so many times, you had said, well, I'm being such a good mom. I'm working and I'm providing and I'm getting money for you. But that's not what I cared about, and that's not what I needed. Like, that's what...
Oh, that makes me want to tear up. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely, I think, the biggest one for me, is just, like, that one really showed, like, the different point of views, like, and how much I think we weren't communicating at that time. Because if I had, texted you and said, no, you need to be at this game, I'm sure you would have shown up, like, right then.
That's
but
how
I was
feel loved, Mom.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just said, well, I have this game, and I left it up to you, and you had thought that providing for me and getting me money for food and nice clothes and shoes and whatnot, and like whatever I want,
or whatever,
makeup, hair stuff and whatnot, which they're all nice, but that's not what I needed in that moment. I think that's something that's where I really saw that I needed to communicate better, because you had no idea that meant that much to me.
Right. Yeah, and I didn't, and I think that's when we are in relationship with anybody, not just like mother-daughter or father-daughter or, son or whatever. It's really asking the people in our lives, like, what it is that they need from us. Because you might think that you're being a good partner, or you might think you're being a good mom, and you're doing those things. But then the other person is like, actually, I feel more loved when you show up at my sporting event, right? And so, yeah, I think that those are the pieces that we then started to communicate from a place of curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And asking more questions, I think, then, because, Yeah, that one I remember put a lot of strain just because it built. You know, I hadn't told you how much it meant to me. And then I was going to other people. That's where I brought other people in. And I was like, she didn't show up. Like, she's so in the wrong in this. And then those other people were telling you other things. And, like,
Right.
it got so messy and it got so built up because, you know, once you start laying that foundation, when you're angry, then it just keeps building and building and building.
Right.
So I think that one, yeah. And I think also, like, the social pressures to, like, have money and, like, provide and, like, work so hard for your family and, like, that's what you want to be. I think that also, like, put a whole different strain because that's...
Yeah, as being a single mom, a business owner, all of these other things were kind of on my shoulders.
Everyone had expected you to work so hard and provide. And I think that part of all of us, like, we really want to succeed and we want to show other people that we're succeeding. And
but the people closest to me weren't feeling that, right? So I was making that outward approval from everybody that I was working so hard and I was getting attaboys, but the thing that really meant the most is my children, and I wasn't able to show up for them the way that they needed. I mean, and my children are all different, so they needed different things. Well, I needed to start having the conversations, and conversations take time, right? And the conversations, like, are not always easy, especially when somebody's mad. And I think that that's where we were at a point in our life where our relationship was so strained because we weren't on a firm foundation, and we had to break that foundation down and realize that when we go to, maybe in divorce, you go to that other parent and you're like, mom didn't show up again, right? And then they're like, yeah, she didn't. She never does, or whatever it might be. Not saying that that was our example, but, you know, then it's just, it builds on that negative foundation. And so when we started breaking down our foundation and actually having the conversation, like, how do you feel loved? How can I show up for you? Is when we started having movement like no other. And so, and being able to say, as the other parent is, well, if you have a problem with dad or something's happening, well, can you tell dad how you really feel? Like, what is the conversation that you need to have? And what are the questions that you could ask him to see what's really going on in his mind, right? Yeah. And I think that helped, and that's really hard when you're coming from a divorced family or different things. So maybe in conversation, when we're even in friendships, right? So it's not about talking about the other person and how they're not showing up for us. It's really asking that person and not getting on the bandwagon, right? Sometimes we want to get on the bandwagon, but it's actually having the conversation around questions and saying, well, have you told them how you feel and what you need from them?
Right.
So what kind of question, like what kind of things, back up a little bit, but what are the questions that helped you the most in other relationships that we have come together on?
I think for me personally, just because I know sometimes when I have a problem that I change it to a different whatever problem. So I think that, you know, when you talk about like, well, what's the root cause? Like, what is really the problem?
That lowest hole.
Deep, right? Deep diving, starting from the bottom, like you said, like really breaking down that foundation. I think that those questions, the ones that, you know, start at the bottom and just break it down from the bottom, are really the ones that help me the most in our relationship and my own other relationships, friendships, whatever. But I think that those are the hardest because, like you said, like breaking down that foundation, and especially us when we were like that strained relationship, it almost feels like, you know, you don't want to call the person out and like hold them accountable because you're scared of like what may happen, you know, because it's so built up and you're starting from the bottom, which is the hardest part. But I think that and even if whatever you can say, you know, you don't have to respond now, I think that was a huge thing where you would just be like, you don't have to respond now, but I just want you to think about that or whatever. Like that was the biggest thing for me, because sometimes when we were at that very strained like point and we were trying to build it back up, like I didn't want to make you mad by like holding you accountable for things that, you know, whatever had gone wrong. And I know I didn't want to be held accountable. I didn't want to be called out.
Right.
Right. So I think that, you know, those really deep diving, starting at the bottom, those questions have helped me, at least personally, the most.
Right. And I think, and those are questions that I'll also put on the Lotus Vision page, but these are insightful questions. They're not really informational questions. And I think that those are the tools that I've been able to utilize in the relationships with my children, with my friendships, and different things that have really helped. Because a lot of the times I was coming from a place of like, through my own filters, right? And so when I really got into the conversations and asking, what do you really need, right? And really caring and giving that space, I got to have deeper conversations, deeper connection, deeper commitments with the people around me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I will add those questions on so you can kind of see the questions that Aspen and I are talking about. And like informational questions like, where'd you go out tonight? What were you doing? Are not the questions that we were looking for. We're looking for insightful questions to have you do that deep dive within yourself, right?
Right.
Right.
It's the questions that you don't gain anything from. It's that the questions that they gain stuff from. They gain, because I think a lot of the time in our relationship, you know, I wasn't truly, you know, thinking about how, you know, my root cause, like, why am I so angry about this little thing? Like, I remember one time I had bought this new jumper or whatever, and you shrunk it, and I was so mad. I was so angry. I left your house early. I went to, you know, the other parents, and I was so angry that I literally, like, packed up my stuff and left early, which is something that I don't usually do. But it's just, and it wasn't even that expensive of a jumper, and it wasn't that cute. I didn't love it. Like, it wasn't something that was super important to me, but it was the fact that I felt like there were so many instances where, you know, something important to me wasn't important to you, and that's kind of the breaking point. Like, I really, now I look back on it and I'm like, that wasn't the problem. That was never the problem. The shrinking was never the problem. It was the fact that, like,
jumper.
I know. I don't know if you remember, but yeah, that was never the problem. It was the fact that, like, I had seen, you know, so many other things in the past, and like I had said, like, I didn't talk about them. I'd seen so many other things be, you know, you kind of shrugged off, like, okay, like
it's no big deal.
Whatever.
It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
right?
And I think sometimes, like, you were trying to help, like, it's fine, like, it's no big deal or whatever, and like, I had just been like, wow, like, she doesn't care, and then that, I think, was the breaking point, because you were like, it's a jumper, we can buy another one. We know where we got it, we can buy another one. It wasn't super expensive, it wasn't, you know.
But I think that sometimes we come from a place like we want to solve it for the other person because we love them so much, right? And so I think that was where I was coming from before. And those tools of having those questions and asking those deeper questions to get understanding about what's really happening in the situation. Right. Like, and I use that a lot, like, what's really happening in this situation. And I do like having the questions to where I ask you some of the things and say, you don't have to answer me now. I want to plant the seed, right? I want you to understand that there might be something deeper going on, and you don't have to say it to me, because that also gives you permission to not step over your own boundary, right? Because to be vulnerable sometimes is really hard, especially if we're scared if that other person might use it against us, because we've all had relationships, right? And we've had things that we've deeply held and shared with somebody, and then they've shared with somebody else, and and that's really hard. And so having those questions too, and those conversations around, Mom, I want you to hear this, but I don't want you to tell anyone else, because this is what I'm afraid of.
Right.
And so we really bring the fear, we really bring the darkness right there, so we can look at it and be like, okay. Or there's times where I'm not available, like, mentally, to be there for you. So having that conversation as well, like, can you show up for me right now? I really need this from you. I need you to show up in this way. I'm like, well, give me 10 minutes, or can I take a tubby? Like, that's a bath for me. Like, sometimes I need that, right, when I get home. So, yeah, am I kind of on point with that?
And I think that code words, too, have been so big for us. Just because I know for me, I have such a hard time articulating things when I'm really frustrated. So sometimes, like, when I would rant about sports, like, you would want to help fix it. You would just want to fix it. And I went into that conversation knowing that I did not care the solution. I just wanted to talk. So I think that code words, like, hey, Mom, I just need to rant real quick. Like, just get it out to somebody, or, like,
just to be heard.
Right. I mean, we have so many code words. Or, like, just stuff that we have talked about, you know, after we had a problem, then we stepped away, then we came back and talked about it, and we're like, okay, well, this is how we're going to solve it next time, because we know that this isn't the only time that this problem is going to arise. Right. And so knowing that, you know, we have those things and we had already talked about them is super nice. Or, like, when you need just, like, a mental check, or when you're, like, checked out or whatever, you'll just be like, well, I'm checked out right now. Like, just give me a second. Because then we know what the other person needs too. Because sometimes you come to me and you really need something, and I'm like, I can't give it to you right now, but I can give it to you later.
Right. And I think that that's really helpful in any relationship that we're in too, is just having those deeper conversations about what the other needs. And I think that for so long in my life was missing, and maybe in other relationships really created some strain. And but I'm so grateful that we've come, you know,
we've come so far.
Yeah, we've come so far. And I just get to be a part of your life, which, again, for a mom, to have that really deeper connection and get to know you, like, I get teary-eyed, right? Because that hasn't always been our story, and that was my biggest fear. And so I thank you so much for allowing me in and allowing me to get to work with you and have those deeper conversations around faith and around what you need. So I thank you so much.
Thank you for teaching me all those things. Yeah, this is definitely not how I grew up, you know. And that, like I said, like, and going back to, like, the thing, like, it changed. It all changed. And then I was so stressed, and then you worked on yourself, and then it all changed again, but in a good way. Like, that was, yeah. And I think also, like, talking, being so vulnerable and talking about our traumas, right? And, like, this is something I still have trouble with, and this is something that triggers me, you know? Like, things from your past and things from that I've had to deal with too. I think that's because, you know, silly little things, like we said, like, silly little things to me are just silly to you, but
they're real to
right
you.
They trigger me, and they cause a reaction in me, which can, like we said, like, it builds so fast.
Right.
Things build so fast.
Yeah, and to have those real conversations.
Right.
And I think, you know, one of the biggest things I state, and when I have a book that I wrote, I just haven't released it yet, but it's really that you and I have the same pain, we just got there differently.
Right.
And I think that was a big realization for Aspen and for me, is that just because her pain, she got there differently, it didn't mean that her pain wasn't validated.
Right.
And we see that in friendships. We see that in relationships. We see, you know, husband and wives. I've had the honor to be able to work with husband and wife togetherness. And we bring everything to the table, and we ask these deeper questions and really learn to communicate about, you know, these questions that have helped us tear down that broken foundation and start from fresh. And I highly suggest that. And if anyone has any questions around how to do that, please reach out to me. I've got a new program that Aspen's kind of seen, but it's called the Next Level Collective. And it's really about what Aspen and I are doing, and about that communication and skills. And now she's able to utilize those skills with friends and other people in our lives. So, is there anything that we think we've missed in this conversation, or that you feel that you would like to say, anything on your heart?
don't think so. Well, also these tools, like, I would not be where I'm at today without these. And, like, with the strained relationship. And, yeah, I mean, now I can go to my mom and just be like, I'm starting this new thing or whatever, like, and I just need help. Like, if I would have looked back, back to when we were super strained, like 2020, 2021, I would have never been able to go for whatever reason. I would have been like, well, it doesn't matter, whatever. Like, I would have never been able to go to you and say, like, hey, I'm starting this Bible study, or hey, I'm starting this whatever, like, thing, and I need your help with it. Like I said, like, those silly little things, like, and sometimes you can project and just be like, well, she'll think it's dumb, and she'll think it's whatever. And so I think that also, like, it's helped in so many other aspects, not just our relationship, but, like, what I do within the world. Like, just, like, going out and, like, now I can come to you and just be like, and even with friends, like, I'll be like, hey, like, this happened with my friend. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is not something that I've ran into before. And sometimes you will have experiences that you'll be able to share, and that it'll fix the problem, or problem will fix itself or whatever. But I think that like, just a little change of asking questions changed so much. Like, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have.
Yeah, do you want to say anything about your Bible study that you're hosting? Because it's so cool, you guys. I just want to hold her up in this because she started this Bible study. And so, Aspen, please tell
give my
everybody.
Little spiel. So it's for all high school girls who just want a little extra God time, who want community. Because I started this with Bree Alley. She's so great. But I go to a Monday night church in Spearfish, and they have one for Spearfish people, but it doesn't align with the times for lead. And I crave community and people who I can go to with whatever, and, like, people who share my same ideals. Because there's not a lot of that. I will say, like, Christian teen girl community and Lead Deadwood, like, it's really hard to find. So I started, me and Bree started this thing, 7:15, you come in.
On Thursday mornings
for all high school girls at Lotus Hub. And Mom offered for the 16 or 20 ounce drink half off for anyone who attends. And we pick a Bible verse or Bible chapter, and we read it, and then we discuss about it, and then we go when we're ready. We oftentimes, actually, we were shooting for 7:15 to 7:45. And honestly, when me and Bree started this, we were like, wow, that's a stretch. Like, I don't know if it'll ever go that long. And it's gone to like 8:10, which is, right, when some people are at school. So it's really amazing to see that to come to life. And we have about 3 girls who are going right now. Not including me or Bree. So if you know any girls who would love to,
on Thursday mornings at the Lotus Up.
We post it on social media everywhere. I'm sure you guys can find it somewhere.
Yeah, but if you're missing that connection with faith and wanting to know a little bit more, Aspen is doing that, because, like, I've also tried to hold my girls up and say, if it's not been created, you could create it. And I think that's important for us to be able to know that if you're craving it, there's a reason why, and there's probably others out there. So we want to hold you up in that, and say, if there's something, this whole world has been created, so go create your booties off, And so, and there's probably other people that will hold you up in that.
Right. And if you're looking for it, other people will too. Like, I was so scared about nobody showing up. And the first one, 2 people showed up. I had a bunch of people that wanted to come and just couldn't make it, which is still, people are trying to adjust it into their schedule, which is lovely to see that people are, like, really willing to change their schedule for it. But yeah, if you're craving it, like, if you want that community or whatever it may be, like, community of people who are like-minded like you, like, other people are going to want it too. Right.
There might be other people. And so speak it into action. And yeah, be there. So yeah, I'm so proud of you on that too. Like, it's so cool. And I love those pieces, Aspen, that you talked about around the stories, right? And we've worked a little bit on that, and that's something that I coach and teach too. Sometimes I do trainings around that, is the stories that we make up in our heads. And so what is so important, there were stories that I had made up and created as a mother about what Aspen thought of me. And so I started taking, the initiative to bringing that to the table. Or if there was something that she said, and it was coming through a filter within myself of my own kind of insecurities, I would say, Aspen, I heard you say. And she would be like, no, like, that's not what I meant, or I heard you say this. I took it this way. And then I would give her an opportunity to say, yes, that's how I meant it. Or no, I didn't mean it that way.
Right.
And I think when we're raising kiddos, it's easy to have that happen because our kiddos know, right? They know where to get us and in our insecurities and stuff. But really where that being a person, right, came in, which I was so afraid of just being a person with my kiddos. But,
right. And I think that sometimes, like, stabbing at those insecurities, like, sometimes I'll still, whatever, get so angry and I'll make comments and you'll be like, okay, well, I can see that you're hurting because that's, I feel like that's more of a cry for help or whatever. And sometimes, it is. And I can say, well, yeah, because you hurt me. So, hurt people. And I think that recognizing that, like, a lot of the times when people hurt you, it's because they're hurting. And it's not because they genuinely think that. Like, I know some of the things that I've said in the past, and I mean, I'm not proud of them, but like, it's because I didn't think that, of course, but I wanted to hurt you
to get a reaction
and to have you feel like I wanted you to feel what I'm feeling. And even if you didn't inflict that pain or whatever, and I wanted, sometimes, like, I wanted, you to be like, well, that really hurt. And then I could just be like, well, yeah, and you did this and that hurt. So now we're even, or whatever it was, and I think that too, now that we recognize it, I think that that's also, like, something that helps us in our day-to-day lives as well.
Yeah. And I think just coming and saying, that really hurt, but what's really going on in that situation, right? And really, like, I know you're hurting right now. I know that those actions are telling me that you're hurting. And so, yeah, that's been really helpful to be able to call that out. And I think that in relationship, right, when somebody's being really mean, we can choose to be really mean back, or we can work on coming back home to ourselves and saying, wow, that really hurt. And we get to choose not to do that hurt to them, right? Or not to do those actions to defend ourselves or in a way that we're used to. Yeah,
and I know, like, people will stab at me and think that well, they're hurt, that's why they're hurting you, hurt people. It's, some friendships have come out of it because I'm like, well, why do that? Like, what's going on so badly for you to have to say that to me? Like, and just the way you phrase it sometimes, make them think. And just be like, I want you to just take a step back and, like, really think about, and it's hard to call people out, especially who you don't really know and who you're not close with. But I mean, my own friendships have come out of it, I'm like, I heard that you said this about me and it hurt me, and being vulnerable with other people too, and it hurt me, like, why would you say that? Like, you don't have to respond to me. I just want you to think about that. And I've literally gotten friendships out of that are strong today.
Yeah, what a beautiful tool.
Right.
Yeah, and I think if we go into relationships, like, not only these tools that Aspen and I have been utilizing and using for the last few years that have brought us closer, but also being able to share those, with our friendships, our work friend, relationships, and some of these things, and getting to choose a different way of living. And I think that's what we're doing. And I'm so grateful that I could share these tools with you.
Yeah.
And watch you flourish, and we get to watch TJ flourish. And
Yeah.
TJ is Timber, Aspen's younger sister, my younger daughter. So, and then and Sager too, like watching kind of that relationship. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think these tools have also like, I know, we all have people we don't like or whatever, and so some of my friends, whatever, they'll hurt other people, and then I'll hurt other people, and then I'll get to, say to them, like, do you realize what you did? Like, you said this and it hurt another person. And like, even in friendships, when they don't hurt, it's not always when you butt heads with another person, but when another person butts heads with another person, you get to say to them, like, why, like, did you hurt that person? Like, what is so deeply there for you? And yeah, and I think
what's really going on in this situation,
Like, even if you're not hurt, but you see someone else hurting another person, like, you get to step up and be like, what is going on for you? And, like, maybe just try to apologize to that person, because it'll never stop. You guys will just keep going if you don't apologize and let it be. So I think that's also so powerful, getting to bring other people close together.
Right. And it's so funny. So I don't know why in my brain there's this beautiful question that I use while coaching and in the program that I'm doing. And if somebody's doing something, this action, right, and they're just not able to get past that little hump. And I think I've used it with you as what are you willing to lose in order to continue the behavior? Right. So in order to continue to lash out, be bitey, or just be mean to other people, which I totally was there. Like I've done those things, and it was really a protection for me, as if somebody I felt hurt and they might have not even meant it that way. And so now, I've utilized these tools to be able to say, like, what did you mean by that comment? I took it in this way, And I don't want that behavior. I want close relationships like I do with you. And
yeah, it's harder, but it's more rewarding for sure.
Right. It's definitely harder, but the foundation's beautiful.
Right. It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to fight and hurt other people. But
especially
it's a lonely road.
It's a lonely road. I like that, girlfriend. Like that. Yeah. And I know a lot of us as humans, we just really want connection. And these tools are what brings connection. And so we really wanted to share them, and can't wait to also have the podcast with Aspen be released. And we're just gaining different things. So again, not only are we here today to kind of share a little bit live, but we also want to open it up and say, if you have something to share, and you want to sit down with me and talk about some deeper things or how life is, and please reach out. Let me know. We'd love to do a podcast with you as well. And Aspen, thanks so much for being, the first guest on the podcast, and also to be able to do this live with me to share. Is there anything that you would like to say that you have not said?
No, I think that if there's any comments or whatever with questions here, we could.
Yeah, I don't even know how to do that. Do you? You're so good.
Let me bring it up on my phone. I'll join the live.
Yeah, does anyone have any any questions for Aspen and I around relationship, or anything that you would like to ask us about what we've discussed? You say anything?
No. I don't think I do. I don't know. My phone's not loading, so.
Oh, darn it. Okay. Well, we thank you guys so much for joining us. We saw lots of people hopping on. And
yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having that space with Aspen and I. And we hope you have a wonderful evening.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll finish.